Things just took a shocking turn for the Vancouver Canucks after a Thanksgiving clash with the St. Louis Blues has major implications going forward for better or worse, with one player potentially playing his way right out of the team budget. We're going to break down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first, if you're part of the 58% of viewers who are not currently subscribed to the channel and you want to stay up to date on all things Canucks, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates when they drop. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is the Canucks drop another one. So the Canucks lost tonight 5-2 to the St. Louis Blues on home ice, which you never want to happen, by a score of 5-2, where the wheels absolutely fell off in that second period, and the Canucks were behind the 8 ball seemingly all game without being able to get much going, unless their name was Kiefer Sherwood, who was the only goal scorer for the Vancouver Canucks tonight, especially with getting a shorthanded goal, unassisted, just completely alone on a breakaway. But again, Kiefer Sherwood really being the only Canucks player that was showing any fight or urgency and got anything going on the score sheet, which we're going to talk about him in a second and later on in this video. But looking at the major indicative point here that I want to touch on, shots on goal. Yeah, Vancouver had a lot of shots on goal, but St. Louis also did. And this now marks 72 shots on net that Vancouver has allowed in 2 games. 2 games. We're now 2 games into the season and we have allowed over 100 shots on net. Absolutely insane. You cannot expect to win many hockey games when A, your offense is struggling the way that they have struggled to start the season, and B, when you're giving up that many shots, especially when your offense isn't that good, which is going to be a major thing going forward, where it doesn't matter how good Thatcher Demko is playing. Yeah, he played his ass off against Edmonton and made an amazing save on Leon Draisaitl, but he was facing 37 shots on net. Yeah, he only gave up 2 goals, but that is not going to happen every night, because sometimes Thatcher Demko or Kevin Lankinen, they're going to have an off night, and that defense is not going to be able to pick up the slack, nor the offense, it seems like, because they cannot score many goals, except for that first game where they had a lot of goals happening just to kick off the season, and now it's kind of fizzled out over these last 2 games, and it seems like we are back to playing Rick Tocchet style of hockey, where we got rid of Rick Tocchet, but not his style of play, because when you look at the game stats for this game, yeah, we talked about the shots on goal. That was a whole other nightmare. Face-off circle, yeah, we improved there. We won the face-off battle there, won overall with 52.2%. Power play, surprising nobody, a whopping 0% for the Vancouver Canucks. Yes, they only had 1 power play opportunity, but guess what, folks? Guess how many power play goals we've scored so far to start the season with over 6 opportunities on the power play? 0. 0 goals scored, and this is a problem that has continued over from last year, over from the year before, and seems to be a never-ending problem for the Vancouver Canucks, and not to mention Evander Kane within 2 games being pulled off of the power play unit, which is not what Vancouver had in mind when they brought him in here. It seems like with the first couple of games here, maybe Evander Kane is a candidate to be this year's Daniel Sprong, where they bring him in, they have him here for 3 weeks, then they ship him out for some draft picks and they kind of flip that for someone else before the trade deadline, or they just keep those draft picks and just try and keep farming their development pipeline and having players for their farm teams. But Evander Kane, hopefully he is able to turn it around. Again, we are in the very early stages of this season. We cannot hit the panic button yet. But with these first 2 games, it's been very alarming how much it's felt like Vancouver Canucks hockey from last year. Block shots, yeah, they were getting bodies out there. They were laying the bodies out there. Kiefer Sherwood especially, he was just very physical, as is expected from him. A lot of giveaways, though, for Vancouver. Playing very poor defensive hockey and nothing going on offensively, where they just couldn't generate anything of chances. There was no urgency, and that is the biggest thing that I think is worth mentioning for the Vancouver Canucks this year. I was talking to Mark earlier tonight. Him and I had a bit of a back and forth about it, but it seems like the boys just don't want it so far. There hasn't been that sense of urgency. There hasn't been that fire or that spark that you see on the bench. And you guys are going to hate me for this, for what I'm about to say, but I'm not saying we need this person exactly on our team, but we need a JT Miller type player. Yes, Kiefer Sherwood is somewhat in that same vein where he can fire guys up between whistles and things like that. But there is not a player on that Vancouver Canucks bench that we are seeing fire guys up between whistles, in between periods where they're just out there saying, hey, let's just wake up, guys, and get something going. where I want to be seeing that coming from, the three leaders of this team. I want to be seeing that from Quinn Hughes. I want to be seeing that from Brock Boeser. I want to see that from Elias Pettersson. I want to see it more from Tyler Myers. I want to see it more from Conor Garland, where they had that scuffle against Edmonton. Conor Garland was right in there in the mix again in the Calgary game as well. That was the one where he was really in the mix, where he went from one scrap right into another one and just was hungry for more. That is what you want to see. That is what I want to see throughout this entire season, where if Vancouver is getting beaten down physically, or it's a close game and they're just in it, or they're getting their ass kicked and they just need to get something to spark it, let me see that fire on the bench. Let me see you guys seem like you hate losing. Yeah, we hear about it all the time when they're in their press conferences. Yeah, they hate losing like this. They hate losing like this. They want to see things going. This is the same song and dance that we've been hearing in the media with these press conferences for the past 2 seasons, especially in the last season, where, yeah, losing sucks. It does suck. Nobody likes to lose, but you have to hate to lose more than you love to win. And right now, these players, they don't seem like they hate to lose enough. They seem like they don't necessarily want it enough. We saw that last year where they had that playoff push, where they tried to make a playoff push, to get into that final spot. And the urgency just didn't feel like it was there. It felt like the fight was just drained from them. Yeah, it was a very long season and a very dramatic season for them last year. But it seems like it's almost kind of trickled over this year, where these last 2 games, yeah, that first game that came out swinging and guns blazing, but these last 2 games have really felt familiar of what Vancouver Canucks hockey was like a year ago, or even 2 years ago, before they were able to kind of get things going and go on that playoff. They started that season off crazy 2 years ago, and then it kind of fizzled out. But we kind of saw that start to happen in the last half of 2 years ago, where it kind of trickled into this season as far as the style of play that Vancouver is doing. A lot of dump and chase hockey, not a lot of offense, and defense is usually where our strongest suit is. And this was a big thing heading into this season, where we said our D-core is set, we're fine defensively, we don't have to worry about that. Well, we've given up 72 shots in 2 games. That is a big problem defensively, whether it's in the D-core or in the forwards not playing enough defensive hockey. That is a problem that needs to be fixed. And when you have a defensive-minded head coach like Adam Foote, it should not be a problem that is happening on this team, and it absolutely has no excuse to be happening. But let us know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below on your thoughts on the game against St. Louis Blues. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is outperforming the budget. So Kiefer Sherwood, like I said, was the only goal scorer for Vancouver tonight, but he did record his 100th career point and his 101st with that second goal. And when you look at his career totals, to no one's surprise, he has been getting his career years with the Vancouver Canucks, where you saw with Nashville he had 27, and last year Vancouver it jumps up to 40 total points. And with Vancouver this year, in 3 games, he's got 3 goals. He's averaging a goal per game, and he has been probably our best goal scorer so far to date for the Vancouver Canucks. Actually, that's not probably. That is a guarantee that he is the best goal scorer right now in the Vancouver Canucks, because, I mean, he's the only one scoring right now. He scored 2 goals tonight. He scored 1 in the other one. So now it's a matter of, can everyone else just catch up to Kiefer Sherwood? Yes, it's very early. We're not going to be saying that he's going to lead the Canucks in goals by the end of the year. But the thing that we have to remember here is that last year, Kiefer Sherwood was the biggest steal in NHL free agency, where they brought him in here on a $1.5 million contract. And when you look at his stats, obviously he has outperformed that in spades. That's why I say that he was the biggest steal last season, because he was on a very cheap contract and was playing like a $6 million guy. The only problem now is that contract is expiring. So what was once considered the biggest steal in the NHL is now going to be one of the biggest problems for Vancouver, because you have a guy that's coming off of a $1.5 million contract who's going to be probably worthy of about $4, maybe $5 million a year, potentially $6 million, depending on the year that he has this year. If he can get up to 50 points, maybe, who knows what it's possible for Kiefer Sherwood when it comes time for free agency. The problem with that for Vancouver is they might not have the money to do that. They have a lot of contracts coming up. They're going to have Tyler Myers coming up, where they have a very big decision there to make with an older, aging veteran. But you have Kiefer Sherwood, who has led the NHL in hits the last season and set the record at that. He was a top 3 hitter the year before that as well. So this is a guy that is an absolute bull in a china shop, that can ruffle feathers between whistles, can set the tone, can get a spark going, whether on the bench or just with goal scoring. And as well, it can produce points at a high rate as if he's a top 6 guy. and he's doing it on our bottom two lines when he really is playing like our best player right now and should be on that first line if you're putting your best players there. But Kiefer Sherwood could be a huge problem for Vancouver because we have the Quinn Hughes iceberg that is coming right at us. That, yes, it's a while away, but it's going to be coming very fast, especially when Kiefer Sherwood is going to be playing his ass off for a contract. You have some other players with expiring contracts coming up, and Vancouver's going to have a lot of tough decisions to make. But Kiefer Sherwood is got to be a guy that they've re-signed. You need to keep him in Vancouver because the better players you have around you, the more happy you're going to keep Quinn Hughes as a chance to stay. If you lose Kiefer Sherwood, that is going to be a huge blow towards keeping him. But let us know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think that Kiefer Sherwood is starting to outperform the Canucks budget and kind of play his way out of his contract to a much bigger contract? Yes, but probably not with the Vancouver Canucks. Do you guys agree with that? Do you not agree? Do you think that Kiefer Sherwood ends up staying in Vancouver? And if he doesn't stay in Vancouver, which team do you see him going to that could need him? Let us know what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments below, as well as your thoughts on the Vancouver Canucks game tonight. I know it was a bit of a rough one. It's not what you wanted on Thanksgiving when you're celebrating with family and have the day off work, but we were treated to a very unwelcome holiday surprise by the Vancouver Canucks. Here's hoping they can bounce back in the next game. But for now, I've been your host, Griffin. Thanks for watching this episode of Canucks Digest. Take care.